All right, and we are live. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, I'm going to preface this before we go any further. I'm going to preface this by saying I did a live stream a couple of days ago with semi-retired Bob, and it was a live stream with Bob and I just talking to each other, and no one in the chat, and or it seemed like there was no one in the chat, but YouTube had a problem. There was an issue, and no one was able to chat for a few hours that day. So Bob and I had a conversation together for an hour while people watched us and weren't able to put comments in. So it would be really nice if you could put some comments in, just say hello, let us know where you're coming in from, and give me a feeling of calmness that there are actually people here with us. So how are you doing, Coach Stephen?
Well, I can add to that. I did one with Bart on Tuesday, and he was like, "There's nobody watching," and the idiot baldy slapped Bart. He said, "I'm allowed to say that." I put the wrong time up. So,
oh no!
He was 12 hours out. So.
Oh no!
But he said, you can be rude about me. So anyway, that's a joke. And of course, it was really Ted's fault, I suppose. But anyway, it's amazing, isn't it, when you don't understand what's going on and you think, have I been banned? And because I was really confused, because that's quite a popular one as well, And,
I was a little bit scared at first when Bob and I went live the other morning, and there was like 0 people, and I'm like talking to Bob, and I'm saying, okay, everybody say hello as you're coming in, and I'm glancing up at the number and it still says 0, and I'm thinking, what's going on? And then it started ticking up and people were coming in, and Bob's saying to me, we have no comments. What's It's really weird. Really weird feeling. But yeah, and like you say, you're thinking, have I said something wrong? Have I been banned or something? Or some automated system?
Oh, Derbyshire, that's where I am. Foggy Derbyshire.
Ooh, is it foggy there?
No, here it's rainy. I mean, Derbyshire is a big county, really. So
okay.
I'm in Ilkeston, Karen, if you want to know.
Nuria, how you doing? Great to see you.
Nuria, I'm missing Nuria. I haven't seen her for a little while.
We've got Chris. What? Batman is Carnivore is joining us from Bali. Thanks for joining us. That's an awesome name.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Pamela from Queensland. Nice. And WD25A, Good Moaning Gents. Do you remember that show?
Good Moaning. Yeah, I went to see Hello Hello live on stage. And
really?
Yeah. Hair Flick stole the show. He was absolutely brilliant live. Better than I didn't really like him that much in the actual TV show, but he really lit up the stage. It was very, very funny. And of course, obviously, Good Morning. I was just pissing. Sorry to swear, but it's the guy who can't do the accent. It's very funny. Yes. Bertram.
Yeah. The thing I loved was, you stupid woman.
Yes. Oh, Renee. Yes.
Yeah. That was on in the 80s, like on Thursday nights in Australia in the 80s. I loved it.
Yeah.
The Primal Lifestyle. How you doing? Bacon Girl 51. How you doing? Coming in from Virginia. And Yomi from Frankfurt. How you doing, Yomi?
Auf Wiedersehen.
Yeah.
That's German, isn't it? That's your actual German, isn't it?
Yeah. And Marilyn from Pennsylvania. How you doing? Anne from Soggy, Sussex.
Yeah, it's raining a lot here. It's terrible weather. It really is terrible.
And Carol's here from Nagano, Japan.
Konnichiwa.
Neighbor, how you doing?
Isn't it funny? I was really going to use that old corny thing. What, do you know her? Okay. Do you know,
What was that?
well, you know, when someone lives near you, you naturally go, "Do you know them?" Yeah. Well, Japan's
Oh,
quite
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that happens when you meet people here in Japan. Like you'll meet a Japanese person, I'll say, "Where are you from?" And I'll say, "Melbourne, Australia." And they'll go, "Oh, I've got a friend in Melbourne, Australia. Do you,
Yep.
you know?" And it's like, "Do you know that person?"
Yes.
Yeah. And it's a smaller city than the cities in Japan, but it's not that small.
No.
Um, yeah. Uh, Sparkling or non from Perthshire, Scotland.
Nice name.
Ah, Perthshire. I'm not sure where Perthshire is. I was born in Ayrshire. Do you know where Ayrshire is?
That's in Scotland as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. 40 miles from Glasgow.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right, 40 miles from Glasgow. All right.
Yeah. Deepest. You can do the accent better than me. You know, I've got a shameful Scottish accent, you know.
I think you've only got to think of, all right, Billy Connolly, windswept and interesting. Anyway, something like that. Something like that.
Windswept and interesting. Yeah, that's a really
Yeah.
Billy Connolly thing, yeah.
Mm.
Deepest Ipswich, Suffolk. How you doing? Oh, wow. Rainy and foggy everywhere. Yeah, just like the UK weather. Yeah, good day, Carol. Okay, well, Stephen, leave the jokes to us pros.
That's Carl, isn't it? Yeah. Carl, I've seen your act. Carl is very good. I had him on my live stream and he was very popular. Very popular. So there's no accounting for taste, is there?
Yeah, I've had Carl on and he had me in stitches.
No, he's great. He's great.
Yeah.
He's got a good story, actually. Very good. And yeah, I don't understand why his YouTube channel isn't more popular, because it's always good quality information.
Yeah. So we've got a question here from FX Trader. Why do the Japanese live so long?
Wow. Well, you live in Japan and I've been to Japan, so you can start if you want.
It's partly that there's not as much processed food here, although that's getting worse. But the main things are cultural. And a couple of cultural things, like they have a saying here, harahachibu, and that means stop when you're 80% full. So people kind of don't eat until, you know, the pizza's coming out their ears. Yeah. So that helps. The other thing is that Japan's homogenous society, and harmony is very important in homogenous societies, or harmony is just inherent in a homogenous society. And as part of that harmony, if you're sitting at a dinner table with people and you're the one person that's kind of stuffing your face with mashed potatoes and pizza and you know, chocolate and all that kind of thing, you're going to stand out like a sore thumb. So that kind of breaks the harmonious atmosphere. And they've got a saying here: the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. So basically you'd be the nail sticking out in that situation. So it's just, yeah, it's mainly cultural.
I'm surprised you haven't mentioned fish intake, because I would imagine that I noticed that there was a lot more fish on offer. I found, all right, I went to the two biggest places. I went to Tokyo and Kyoto, and the markets, the food markets, are just brimming with animal products and mainly, you know, fish, very fresh fish, as in the live, some of it. You know, and I think that might have a part of it. I think the younger generations, you know, now we're seeing patterns where they're not living as long because they're westernized. I've also found things like there's no place to go and have breakfast. You know, it's not a thing. Going to have breakfast, not a thing, actually. And I found that quite interesting, because you would imagine that there would be a sort of breakfast place. But there are vending machines, and the vending machines are full of good food rather than chocolate bars and stuff.
And that's actually a good point about the coffee shops or the breakfast places that are typically you'd have available to you in the UK or Australia or America. If you're out at 8 o'clock in the morning on your way to work, there's very few coffee shops open when you can stop for your kind of chocolate chip muffin and
Yeah.
coffee and a frappuccino and all that kind of thing, right?
Mm.
So like typically Starbucks in most places wouldn't be opening till at least 9 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock, that kind of thing. So it's just a different environment. But yeah, as far as the animal products and yeah, the fish and the animal products generally, they're not scared of animal products. They're not scared of fat. Fat is prized.
Mm.
And a lot of the time when they're eating vegetables, they're fermented,
Yes.
so that's another thing. Okay, and Yumi, how are beef prices in your country doing? Where I live, it has gone crazy high, and I even mix it up with pork because of it. Japan hasn't really changed very much because even though they're starting to get some inflation here, I mean, basically it's still pretty somewhat like stable because we're in deflation for 30 years. So how about over there, Stephen?
Oh, it's horrendous. It's so expensive. It really is. Even the supermarkets, if you want the lesser quality beef, it's still quite expensive. It's crazy. They are crazy high, and mix it up with pork is a really good practical thing to do. You can get cheaper cuts and do different forms of cooking. So we get shin beef, which nobody really wants to buy. We slow cook that, which is actually quite nice. And you can get cheaper cuts, and just normally what you find with this cheaper cuts, if you cook them slower, they can taste a bit nicer. Take your time, let them rest. Going to the butcher helps because you will get things like organ meats very cheap, to the point where sometimes you get kidney and heart for like £1, just a pound in money, sterling, a British pound, not the weight. And it's just incredible that it's so expensive, and it's making people go to things like ground beef. Interestingly, the higher fat ground beef is cheaper, or minced beef, as we say in the UK. So, yes, it's quite frightening, really. The supply chain. I mean, they're putting the squeeze on the farmers. Really, it's not the farmers' fault.
You remind me of Carry On Camping when you said pound there.
Was that Peter Butterworth? £1 per person?
Yeah, pound for everything.
Yeah.
How much is that pound?
Yeah, per person.
Yeah. Okay. From Jack, how much time passed before you felt mostly healed after you started a carnivore way of life? Is that similar to people you interviewed or have in communities?
Well, it's us, isn't it? It's to us, not just me.
Yeah. It varies person to person, like some people are like, overnight my sleep is better, or I'm out of bed with energy, all that kind of thing. And some people are like, no, I was like 8 months in before I noticed anything. I just stuck with it because it was my last resort kind of thing. There was nothing else I could do, and they just had to kind of wait it out. So I found it differs.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I've recently had a fabulous letter or email from a client who just has felt the best they've ever felt in their entire life. And I've been seeing him probably 2 months. It depends on, firstly, the level of damage coming into this and your age, obviously. If you look at the biological evolution and aging and stuff like that, your age will make a big difference, because when you're younger, you can cope with lots of bad things a lot more than when you're older, which has been scientifically proven with like fruit fly experiments. And the reason you use fruit flies is because you can do the generational things, but you can then extrapolate the findings into using, animals as well. And we find that there's a thing where if you're, say, 20 and you're still in your reproductive prime, because of the natural selection pressures, genetic pressures, evolution, however you want to word it, before you started reproducing, or once you start reproducing, you're pretty robust to many things like novel foods and new foods. But as you get older, you become less tolerant, which is why, most people that come to me, not all, the lady last night is 28, but, most people are about 40. That's when I started to notice things. And this is scientifically been shown, and it's so obvious, really, that you are more robust when you're younger. But the interesting thing is about, I will get back to Jack Young Jr.'s question, but I think it's just interesting in a wider scope, is that all of these longevity testing has always come up with the one conclusion that the ancestrally appropriate food is the best over the long term. So with the fruit flies, how they've evolved is mainly eating rotting apples. So they will do different cohorts for the flies. For instance, some will be fed basically the rotting apples. Some will be fed something that they have been exposed to, which is bananas in some places. So they have a little bit of a genetic propensity to that. And the novel food, believe it or not, is oranges. I'm always saying this. Oranges are, a relatively new thing on the planet. They're not natural. And time and time again, when they look at generational, how robust they are, how much they can reproduce, which is like the biggest yardstick of how robust you are, the rotting apple group always, by a long way, always outperforms, lives longer, and produces more eggs. Always. But even that experiment shows that the novel foods are tolerated at the beginning. So when you look at longevity and production, so it's a simple calculation of how long they live and how many eggs they produce. That's how simple the sort of calculation is. You get these 3 lines on the graph that they all look pretty good at the beginning, and then they, the orange, they start to drop off, and banana, they start to drop off, and the rotting apples, they just continually get better. So if someone comes to you and they are, they've been on a terrible diet, real standard American diet for many, many years, and they are, let's say, 28, the chances are that once you put them on a species appropriate diet, they're going to see the benefits very quickly. But if they've been on that and they're 45, it can take a bit longer because you've got a lot of undoing to do. But once you're on that species appropriate diet, and this is the point, Jack, once they're on it, the healing starts. And it can be as quick as 3 weeks. I've had people off their blood pressure meds, off their diabetic meds within 3 weeks. And I've had people where it's taken a year. And one person I've got, they're 2 years in, and they're feeling better and better. And the quote from the email was, "I didn't know how good you could feel. So I've constantly thought this is as good as I can possibly feel. And then the next week, I feel even better." So if you don't
that's awesome.
if you don't know what good feels like, you're going to keep saying, "I feel great." And then something's going to surprise you.
Nice. Thank you for your question, Jack. So Carol's just talking about the meat in Nagano. In Nagano supermarket, beef prices have gone up about 40%, but the yen is cheap now. Yeah, the yen's worthless now. Bulk has not gone up more than 10%. Yeah. You know what's really gone up in price here? Rice. Like you would pay 2,000 yen, like $20 for a 5-kilo bag of rice a year ago. It's now like 5,000 yen, $50. And everyone's complaining about it on forums and stuff. And I'm like, I've got the answer. I just stop eating it. Yeah. But that's bad about Nagano. Wow, 40%. Yeah.
Apparently, there's somebody there saying, "I can't get this on your channel, Dave."
Yeah, I saw that from Dean. I just checked. It seems to be going on my channel, but
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for letting me know. I gave it a check, Dean. Cheers. Okay, so from Heather McMaster, how can you tell if it's genuine hunger, healing, priming, or insulin resistance driving hunger?
Well, that's a great question, because I think most people's hunger and satiety signals are pretty messed up. It's interesting what you said about the Japanese. Oh, Harry Kui or something you called it. What's the thing?
Hara Hachibu.
Eating to 80%. How do you get to that? I mean, how do you get to that? I know it's rule of thumb, sort of roughly where you are, but so genuine hunger, I suppose, is where your stomach is empty and it rumbles. So when most people fast, they're surprised at how much your ghrelin goes. And, oh yeah, I am hungry because my stomach is feeling very empty. So sometimes you get that physical thing. So I think if your tummy is rumbling and it feels empty, that might be a good sort of start. But even in that case, when people are fasting, they might be thinking they're hungry because they're having an addictive response rather than a hunger response. So I always say that you should do something like give it a 20-minute test, and that is, let's say you're looking at some ham or a sausage or whatever it is. Do I really want that? Do I really need that? Let's wait 20 minutes. Let's do some things. Let's distract my mind for 20 minutes. And if in 20 minutes I go back to that and I really want it, that's probably genuine. That's probably genuine hunger. Doesn't mean it is, though. I'm just saying, that's a sort of small acid test you can do. If you, so genuine hunger, healing. How do you know it's genuine healing? Hopefully I've covered the hunger there. Then, well, things like, we got metrics. So people with diabetic complications, they will look at their blood glucose, or they look at their ketones if they're lucky enough to have a Keto Mojo. I've got a link in my description to the Keto Mojo if you don't know how to get one, and you can measure glucose and ketones in the same hit, which is really good. So you'll see those metrics. You definitely will see that. Sorry, Heather, if this sounds really rudimentary, and I'm not being patronizing, but if a person has sleep problems, just simply sleeping better, not listening to the Aura ring, by the way, because that can say you're not sleeping well, even though you feel you've slept well. That would be good. You could also look at swelling, for instance, how your clothes are fitting, if you're worried about your body composition. So there are things, your friends start to notice, oh, you're looking good. Have you lost a bit of weight, or you look a bit healthy, or your skin looks good, or whatever. Your own hair, you could feel your hair improving. There's many signals. You've got their priming. Priming is a completely different thing. Priming is a way of trying to tap into your hunger signals and your satiety signals by eating a lot. It's that simple, eating, maybe 3 times a day with snacks, eating like it's your job for a couple of weeks. Normally by about day 9, you don't ever want to eat for the rest of your life, ever. So, that's quite interesting. So priming is a different thing, but it does tend to give many people a reset. It certainly worked for me. I know Bart Kay tried it as well, and it worked for him, where it seems to stop you thinking about food because you get sick of it. So if you look at Weight Watchers or all those sort of eat less, move more type idiotic plans, you're constantly hungry, constantly thinking of food. Imagine getting to a point where you think, oh, I don't ever want to eat again, genuinely feeling like that, and then just eating when you're hungry is so good. It is food freedom beyond belief. Insulin resistance driving hunger. Well, firstly, I don't believe in the term insulin resistance. I think it's a misnomer. Insulin resistance is more the cell protecting itself. If you have high levels of insulin circulating, firstly, you've got to ask yourself what's caused that, and it's normally the intake of carbohydrates. Too much glucose in the blood will put your insulin up, but what's the upshot of that, well, your fat stores cannot be tapped into, because with insulin, its role is anabolic. It's to build you up. So why would it allow you to be building you up while also letting you break yourself down by breaking down the fat? So it doesn't do that. And this explains why the person that goes out and has a blowout sort of Indian takeaway or Indian meal with loads and loads of carbohydrates wakes up the next morning absolutely starving, because you can't liberate your fat. Therefore, you feel hungry. So that is the classic cell protecting itself, and you end up with higher insulin because of what you've eaten. So that's a sort of weird roundabout way of why you've got what's the word? Hunger feelings when you've just eaten a lot and it doesn't make any sense, or eaten recently, I should say.
Yeah, the only thing I can add to that is, regarding the hunger or genuine hunger, I think the best thing to do is, if you're starting to think about food and you want to actually test if you're really hungry, drink a bit of water, stand up, go and do something, like move somewhere or whatever, for, like, as Coach Stephen said, maybe 20 minutes or something. Go and, exercise, go for a quick walk, something like that. And when you come back, say to yourself, do I feel like a can of sardines? And if the answer is no, you're not hungry.
Absolutely.
Because no one's gagging for a can of sardines,
Now, that reminded me of a joke at school where people would say, I feel like a can of Coke. No, hang on. Yeah. I feel like a can of Coke. And then you'd say, no, well, you don't look like one.
You don't look like one. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, from Dr. Menzel, is folic acid mandatory in the UK like in the US? Here in Germany, it is not, but more and more food companies do it anyway, although it can block the folate uptake.
Absolutely. It's a huge problem. Yeah. So if you look at your breakfast cereal in the UK or the US, it has to be fortified, and they do definitely fortify it with folic acid. That actually came into the UK in 2025. I mean, it's quite recent. All non-whole meal wheat flour things, basically. Yeah. Germany, it's good, isn't it? Because I think that's the thing. You have a problem with the MTHFR variants. Your natural absorption of folate is compromised by folic acid. Yes, so that is a big deal. Yeah, definitely. So we are fortifying with the wrong thing, and it's subsequently giving people problems. So yeah, that's awful.
Until my wife got pregnant, I'd never heard of folic acid. And then as soon as the woman gets pregnant, it's like, okay, you got to make sure you're eating folate, right? And of course, what do? You go to all the kind of the breakfast cereals or whatever, they've been fortified with this stuff. So, and that's just not good.
Yeah, and the thing is, the folic acid is not folate. It's not natural folate, which is 5-MTHF, right? So if your folic acid, it will compete, and therefore you'll get bad absorption. And also, I mean, just as a little offshoot, the folate that we want is only really usable when it's called monoglutamate, which is only from animal products. So if you get folate acid from plants, that's polyglutamate, which has to have a lot of processing. So even folate is better from animals because we get it in a preformed bioavailable way rather than in plants.
So that's kind of like the same thing with the iron. The iron that comes from spinach is not really usable without mass work to get it to a...
Yeah. And you can get folate from eggs and meat and liver, and and you don't get the blocking issue. So get rid of the cereals and go back to some eggs in the morning.
So do you know, is it like something like vitamin C that's heat sensitive or?
I don't know that. But I mean, in cereal, obviously, there's not a heating issue once it's been sprayed back on.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So from Eclectic Soup, I have
Good name. Good
I
name.
have chronic kidney disease, stage 3B. Should I go carnivore? My GP might say no.
Your GP might say no. Absolutely. This is not medical advice. This is just personal experience and knowledge of physiology and health sciences. The postulation that protein is problematic for the kidney is just that. It is a theory, and there are studies out there that actually show it's protective. So personal experience, I've had lots of people with kidney disease, and more often than not, kidney disease is driven by the fact that they have too much glucose in their bloodstream, which leads to high insulin, which causes kidney problems, which is retention of sodium and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I have seen miraculous filtration rate improvements with kidney patients eating protein, that do eat protein. They just avoid all the glucose. They avoid the carbohydrates. Then if they do have complications of diabetes, that goes, and then their kidney problems go at the same time. And I literally had somebody that was given 2 weeks to live, and that was 5 years ago, and I interviewed them about a year ago, so that didn't happen either. So we've also got to look at where they're getting the metrics from. Where is this diagnosis coming from? Now, this is normally coming from what's called the eGFR, the estimated glomerular filtration rate, and that is an unreliable marker. Sorry to bang on about the same old things, but we need to know that these blood markers are being misinterpreted, and 70% of medical procedures are instigated on the back of blood tests, and some of the blood tests are very poor and ill thought out. So, for instance, if you have creatinine, which is a waste product of protein metabolism, the eGFR, the filtration rate of the kidney, is a proportion. So if your creatinine goes up, you're eating more protein. That will simply, by an artifact of maths, bring your filtration rate down. Because if anyone knows anything about maths, if you've got something that is equal on both sides of the equation, and one goes up, the other one's got to go down to make the equation the same. That's very basic. So there's a thing called the cystatin C test. So that would be the best thing to do, because if you do the cystatin C test, your filtration rate might actually go up considerably. So if you've got chronic kidney disease stage 3B, well, where's that coming from? That's probably coming from the eGFR. I'm just going to read from my book here, an actual person, right? So under 60, filtration rate is a problem. When you get near 60, they think that's a problem. In fact, what's happening is it used to be under 60, and now they panic when it's around 60. So here you go. This is an email I got. Coach Stephen, this is not a question, but a huge thank you. Right at the start of this challenge, I asked a query regarding my kidney function. Based on my eGFR results, doctors were freaking out and wanting to send me to a nephrologist. You took this concern in your stride and advised me to get a cystatin C test. This is not affected by dietary protein intake, and none of my doctors had recommended it. I did just that and received the results this week. My standard eGFR was showing at 67, but thanks to the cystatin C test, my eGFR equivalent is 128. So almost double filtration rate. Stephen, I cannot thank you enough. How you share your advice, not expertise. You rock. Now, I'm not doing that as a humble brag. I'm doing that because that's in my book, because that's really common. It isn't a one-off. The eGFR is a terribly unreliable marker if you eat protein. So
just to support what you're saying there, Dean's just put in a comment. According to my eGFR, I was 3B, but it was completely false. My kidneys were almost perfect using cystatin C.
Yep. So simple.
And that's thanks to you, Coach Stephen.
Oh, right. Thank you. That's very good. Wow. That's very nice to know, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing. Understanding it is the biggest thing, is getting the right test.
So here we go. Uruj, sorry, I'm butchering your name again. I have uterine fibroids following carnivore diet, but feel very gassy and bloating. Why?
Right. Why are you getting gassy and bloating? Right. Well, the easiest thing to ask is, are you having sparkling water? That's the first thing. That alone can do it, because you've got carbon dioxide in the water, and that has to be dealt with. That has to be processed by the body. So as soon as you drink that, it hits stomach acid and becomes carbonic acid, and it can cause bloating and gassy feelings. The fibroids following the carnivore diet. So this is something you believe has happened, I think, because of the carnivore diet, or just happens. I mean, but they're in the making for many years. They don't just suddenly appear. So the uterine fibroids are they're sort of a mass, aren't they? They're a thing, whereas the digestive issues of gassing and bloating are completely different things, I think. So I would definitely do something like a mood and food diary. I would, with everything you eat and drink, I would log somewhere. This is what I offer to my people that consult with me, and they just send it via WhatsApp. And then you write what happens. So I've got sparkling water here. I'm not anti it, but if I have too much of it, I will feel gassy and bloaty, definitely. So if I was writing down, my log today, I would say 1 small glass of sparkling water, started drinking it about 8 o'clock in the morning. By 11, during the Dave Mack show, I thought, if I have a bit more of that, I'm gonna feel a bit bloaty, so I stopped. So you could find things, I don't know, fatty meats, it could be eggs, it could be anything, but I would definitely try something for, 7 days, and just keep logging it and just seeing how you feel, to be honest. I mean, it's simple as that, really.
And WD25A is just following up with and just mentioning, is she still drinking milk and dairy, thinking potential lactose intolerance?
Yeah, it could be that. That's exactly it. That's the whole point of doing this, is logging everything, because the culprits could be something you didn't really expect to be a culprit. But at the time you think, well, that went down well, but then 2 hours later, when you've forgotten that you've eaten it, it's gonna, you get this problem, and you'd be able to do the joined up thinking, basically.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Beaumont 666, does brushing teeth trigger cephalic phase insulin response? Only if you brush with sugar. No, I don't know. I don't know. Any ideas on that one, Stephen?
Well, we got Dr. Volker, haven't we, Menzel, in the room. He might be able to answer. Yeah. Doubtful, but possible. I mean, it does depend. I mean, if you've got a sweet toothpaste and you're expecting sweet, I really doubt it, because you're not going to ingest it, really. I think it's toothpaste. The body knows it's toothpaste. You're not thinking, oh, look. I don't think anyone goes, oh, I'm going to clean my teeth. Woohoo! A little bit of dessert. I don't think we think that. So, yeah.
Can't wait for that spearmint treats later.
Yeah. I think it's possible, but, I think it's very nuanced and unlikely.
From Haynes Falls, is it possible to have no electrolyte deficiency without supplementation on the carnivore diet?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, one of the things is, and I go on about this, is you can drink pure water, but you can't excrete it. You can't urinate out pure water. So you always will take some electrolytes out with you. So if you're drinking too much water and your urine is clear, you are causing your electrolyte deficiency. So yeah, excessive drinking of plain water will deplete your electrolytes. I always have a mineral water. So for instance, today that's a Buxton water that I've fizzed up myself using my soda stream. So it's plain Buxton water, which is mineral water, which has been filtered through the planet, through the Earth's crust. So it's got lots of minerals in there. Make sure that your salt intake is good. This is why we always say, salt to taste, because I think many people are not having enough salt. So that's obviously good. The osmotic effect of fluid in your body is really important. That's just a flash way of saying it's got some solute in it. It's got some salt, for instance. So if you imagine a beaker and you had a semi-permeable membrane down the middle, and on this side you had water with no electrolyte in, and this side you had some water, and then you started to put some salt in, that salt would still sort of go across that membrane. So eventually you'd have the same concentration of salt. But it does work in reverse as well. So you get, if you keep putting the salt in, you might find it actually starts to suck water from one side to the other to balance it out. So there's different ways that your fluid balance works. That's I've just murdered the physics of osmotic pressures, but that's basically it. You wouldn't have a compartment with just water, so you always need to add some sort of salt. Obviously, if you're sweating, people get this completely and utterly wrong. I think it's going back to measuring stuff. They think, well, you're sweating out all the salt, that's going to deplete you of your electrolytes. Well, actually, in reality, you sweat out more water than you do salt, for instance. So if we measured your sodium, the concentration of salt would actually be higher, not lower. But the raw amount of fluid in your body has gone down. So it's still not a good thing. So what I mean by that is, if we take that water and I put a teaspoon of salt in there, the concentration would be 1 teaspoon in half a glass. If I filled that up with water and nothing else, the concentration would be 1 teaspoon of salt in a full glass. You see, so if I was doing that, we always got to remember that blood tests and tests like that are always about the concentration. So sweating can be a problem. So just be aware of that. But yeah, definitely have no electrolyte deficiency with this way of eating. Good quality meat helps, variety. So you could have duck, chicken, egg, fish. Fish I think is good. Salmon, mackerel, sardines, as you mentioned. If you feel like a sardine, you look like a sardine. That's great. And your body will give you feedback. So if you start having cramps, it might be that there's not enough electrolytes in your body. So therefore, you would up your salt intake. That would be the easiest thing to do. You can look at things like magnesium, potassium. But if you drink to thirst, salt your food. You could have things like bone broth as well, which is very good for all the mineral-rich things that you need. But yes, intentional salting is the easiest thing to do. And if you're sort of exercising heavily in a hot climate, that's very excessive. You might need a little bit of a magnesium top up, but yeah, definitely can do it without supplementation. Definitely.
So question for you, Coach Stephen. You mentioned a few weeks ago that you had a CAC score in the hundreds. What are you doing to handle that?
Carnivore. And people hate that answer. But I just, I went down the route of vitamin D3 and K2, MK4, MK7. I did all that. And I just realized that possibly I don't need to do all those things, because those things can be sorted out by the fact that I get out in the sunlight. I eat things containing K2. So I think that for me, that's it. I'm not overly bothered about it. Well, I'm not bothered about it at all, actually, because I'm eating the right way for me.
Yeah. Okay, from P. Jasmine. I was on keto, then carnivore. On keto, I could fast easily for 48 hours. I experienced the high energy. On carnivore, I can fast at a maximum of 24 hours and haven't experienced high energy mental clarity. Why? First question I would ask you is, how long have you been on carnivore? But yeah.
Do you want to add a bit more?
I can't think of anything else. I would just think, like, how long have you been on carnivore? And if it hasn't been for a reasonably extended amount of time, if you've only been on it for a few days, few weeks, something like that, I mean, that's likely the problem.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like a little bit more time scale, to be honest, because we don't know how long, like you say, on carnivore and how long on keto, because keto will definitely adapt you in a different way. So there's many reasons. So obviously the first one is protein. So you might be eating more protein, which actually takes up more energy to digest compared to keto, for instance, which means that there's more gluconeogenesis driven by glucagon, not a problem, by the way, which just powers the digestive system. So there's 5 times more energy needed for protein than there is for carbs or fats. It could be that your fat intake has gone down because many keto. See, I don't know what type of keto diet you were doing, but anyway, let's think of all the things that come to mind from people I've seen. So yeah, people with keto often come when they're much higher in fat than carnivore. So you're in ketosis longer, so therefore you've got the steady, slow release energy from ketones. What's your thyroid situation? Everyone ages. So when you were on keto, you were younger because it's in the past, not in the future, obviously. So there could be some hormonal shifts that are just happening and would have happened anyway. So normally it shifts in thyroid as you get older. So that could be an interesting thing. You hydrate differently when you go carnivore because you are not really consuming any carbohydrates. Carbohydrates suck up glucose. So for every molecule of glucose, you have 3 molecules of water, whereas when you go carnivore, there's less glucose. And this goes back to what we just said about hydration. You can find your hydration problems because of that, because your body is dealing with the fluid balance differently. So what can you do about it? Increase your fat to protein ratio. So see if that works. I would actually go a little bit more into higher fat just to see if that works. And if that doesn't work, then lower the fat and increase your protein. So it could be about meal timing. There's so many different things it could be. Sorry, I can't really give a great answer.
Just a lot of these things comes down to really just trying to work out what works for your body individually, right? Because everyone's going to respond somewhat differently to everything. Yeah,
we've got a super chat. I just noticed.
So Chippy43, do you know anything about Meniere's disease? It's not for me, actually.
Oh, have you had anyone on your channel with this?
Yes.
What was happening there?
So I had a couple on my channel that started carnivore. They're doing really well, but the wife did develop Meniere's disease, and carnivore hasn't got rid of it for her, but it's helping her to manage it better.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I say that is because I don't have many people, that had that particular problem. So but it's interesting for me because it's an inner ear disease. I mean, it's a thing that I was actually told I might have with some excess fluid in there. So it's now made me very, very aware of my hearing aids. Because once you start talking about this, it's very personal for me. So you have these, you have like semicircular canals with fluid in there, and you can get attacks of vertigo, hearing loss, obviously, tinnitus, all of those things. And when I did rehab, we used to do the Epley maneuver for some people, and that would resolve everything. And it was a horrible.
Is that like the Heimlich maneuver?
Yes, it's sort of, you actually get the person to lean back, and then their head comes off of the off of the table, and then you look at their eyes, and their eyes might flutter a little bit, which is actually quite normal. And then you will move the head in a particular way at a particular velocity. And what you're doing is you're getting those canals and the fluid, and there's potentially crystals in there, and you're just moving that fluid around because you're moving the head in a particular way. There's 3 interlooping canals, and you can get the crystal to move. The biggest problem was that it makes the person vomit a lot, not always, but sometimes really bad, but it can resolve it. A really decent chiropractor or osteopath could do that maneuver. So yes, so I've actually done that when I used to do rehab, not doing this, because I think it needs a little bit of physical attention. But also, one of the things you can do is, look at fluid retention. So again, coming off of a carbohydrate diet would be very good. Vestibular, that's the word I was looking for, canals. Yes, so that could really work. Now, the mainstream tend to use diuretics, which is not the way to deal with fluid balance whatsoever. So, yeah.
I think the way the mainstream deals with everything is not the way it's. So Chippy43, if you want to shoot me an email to realzerocarb@gmail.com, I'll get that that interview out to you with the couple as well, just so you can hear their testimony about it too.
Did anything there that I just said ring a bell with you from the story?
Only about like the dizziness and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, there wasn't a major part of their story, but yeah, because the actual main part of their story was more related to the fact that the cancer wasn't present anymore. And the oncologist actually decided to go carnivore. So
hey, I mean, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Dean's asking, how many years have we been carnivore? Is it going on 4 or 5 years? It's coming up on 4 years. For me, it's June 3, 2022 was when I started. Yeah.
2019 for me, 6 years. And I know that because it was my 55th birthday. And I did a 90-day challenge, and here I am 6.5 years later.
Yeah, that's a long 90 days. That's like a Jupiter 90 days or something.
Yeah. Carnivore's good, but I can't count.
Okay, so from Nuria, just read your migraine Substack, which is brilliant. But I have a question. If glucose uses sodium as a co-transporter, wouldn't exercising to burn off that glucose deplete also sodium? Why do the same?
Just read your magazine. Oh yes, right. So firstly, yes, I was talking about sodium as a thing there. Well, when you get into exercise physiology, the body does tend to change. A lot of things change because the signaling from contraction of muscle makes a difference. Sodium levels make a difference. AMPK signaling makes a difference. So the body does know it's exercising simply. So it will handle things differently to being at rest. I suppose, Nuria, the answer is the body is really smart and it knows what it's doing, and it understands the signals it's getting back. So the migraine Substack was talking about someone over a 24-hour period and some of the simple things that are being missed. And it's based on, a conversation I had with Angela Stanton, who is, I think, like second to none when it comes to understanding migraines. Great book. And it's a good interview I did on YouTube about it. But yes, you could. Yes, you could stretch in a way that exercise would lower sodium, which is what you're saying there. So, yes, it is possible because what we just said. But then I think the thing about sweating, for instance, I need to get into what we're saying. So when people measure it and they say exercise and your sodium concentration went up, it doesn't mean the raw amount of sodium went up because you've sweated off more water than you've sweated out sodium. So it's a little bit more nuanced, and probably looking at the amount of questions we got left and the time left, I can't really give you a fantastically convoluted answer. But intestinal and renal glucose is different to what we're talking about in the brain as well. So when you're looking at sodium during exercise, most of the skeletal muscles and glucose entry is sodium independent. That's it. So you've got to look at what we're doing and what we're talking about. So the Substack article is talking about the brain chemistry, and exercise is talking about muscle chemistry. I mean that's really the number of it. So yeah, sodium independent GLUT transporters in muscle. So yeah, it's different, and it will definitely not be dependent on sodium.
So let's go for this one as the last question today. Can a meat-based diet affect chronic low sodium levels for the better or for worse? What would you say are the main things to look for with chronic low sodium levels? Female, age 69.
Well, I mean, the short answer to that, as we've just said, I think, is that it's unlikely to cause chronic low sodium levels if you're salting to taste and you're not over drinking plain water. Really, I think that's the thing. I don't know if you're on any medications, if that's what you're worried about, but you know, I probably would need to know more about why you're asking about that, because I'm assuming that there's some sodium issue going on.
Cool bananas. Well, guys, thank you for your questions and chats this evening or this morning or this afternoon or wherever you happen to be.
Wherever it is, yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate you being here. And we will be back with you same time, same bat channel, same bat time next week.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Can I just add? I mean, the thing is, we're not doctors, so we can't medically say things, but so it's not a patient, doctor relationship, because that's not what it is. But low sodium, if we just be general, but this might not apply to you if you're asking for a specific reason, if you're on meds, but let's just say generally, if you are low sodium, you will have nausea, you'll have headaches, fatigue, drowsiness, muscle cramps, all those things that we talked about earlier. So if you're getting that and you're disorientated, for instance, then you should speak to a doctor, really. So I'm just trying to be responsible. But yeah, you need to make sure that your fluid balance is correct and you have the correct amount of electrolyte and sodium in your body. But they're the main ones. And most people know the headache one, because if people say, I'm getting a headache, what's the easiest thing to do? I always say, small glass of water with a quarter teaspoon of salt, and 20 minutes later, you probably won't have a headache. But yeah, sorry. Yeah. You were doing the big finish, Dave. Sorry. But
no worries. I'll add some tap dancing or something.
Yeah, please do. Yes.
So thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate it. Coach Stephen, thank you very much for your expertise.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, my sort of northern accent